All right, so I've got my page set up, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over all the elements of a form. I'm not going to do any special formatting or anything like that. I'm just going to keep it as is. So as you can see, I already have my body. So the way I start off is I have my form tag, and I'm just going to push enter a little bit. I'll probably go down here, and I'm going to close my form tag. Now the form needs two attributes. Action equals. Now the action equals is it can be a code that can tell it where you're going to send the information, how you're going to send the information. It's an advanced action. This is something that is a language that we're not going to learn, so we're going to keep it simple. We're going to in quotes say mail to colon, and I'm going to say jmartinez@yahoo.com. That's not my real email address, but it's just an email for right now. So you can put your MyMilken one, that's fine. And then I'm going to say method equals post. That's it. Those are the two attributes that you need to know. Yes?
I was looking over, like, Sam showed me hers just so I could, like, see, and that was, like, the one thing I didn't get.
So what we're going to do is we're going to cover every element, so don't worry about it. So what I'm going to say is this is a text. So first things first. Forms use inputs, okay? And inputs have different types. So the first one we're going to learn is text, okay? Text field. Now I'm going to save this, and if you take a look and I refresh, this says text field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a colon, and I'm going to do my first input type. Input. Now the input is going to be the same for a lot of elements, but the type is the different one. So we're going to say type equals, and we're going to say text. We're going to say name equals, because what the name is when this stuff is sent to the server, it's the identifier. So I can get a whole bunch of information, and it'll be jumbled together, or the name will actually be, so in this case, text. Whatever they type in, this is where the text goes. So here we go. So whatever I typed here, whenever I get something on the server, it's going to be attached to text. It'll say text equals this. So basically that's telling me they put this information in the text field. And again, all this does is it adds a text field. I'm going to add a break. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say password. And I'm going to say, again, this is an input type equals, this is a password. Name equals, now this again is the name is the backend identifier. I'm going to say name equals password. So now I have a password field, but take a look. Oh.
Is that why you put type password?
That's why type password. What it does is it allows you to have your password just be completely hidden like this.
Egypt!
Okay, so the next type that we're going to do is a comment box. Now, I'm pretty sure you've seen this, a comment box, etc., etc. And I'm just going to hit break right here. I'm going to add a break. A comment box is not typical. It's not the same as an input. A comment box is one of those few things that actually gets its own tag. And by that tag is called text area. We actually have to define a couple of the attributes. And they're kind of self-explanatory. We have to say how many rows the text box is going to be. So we're going to say rows equals 5.
All one word text area.
Text area, yep, all one word, no spaces. And then we're going to say how many columns. Now look at it this way. I'm going to say calls equals 20 for right now. What a text area basically is this. When you're saying rows and columns, it's basically a comment box. The rows are how many lines it's going to be. Imagine one letter fills one column space. So when you've got 20 columns, it's going over 20 spaces before it goes to the next line. Okay? So I'm going to hit save. Now what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go down here. I have to close text area.
Something happened with my comment box.
Take a look.
Oh, text air. There we go.
Take a look. And I can type stuff in here. Now, here's something that you can do as well. Take a look. If I go in between these tags and I add something like comment here, that is the default of what will show up in the comment box.
And then they can like delete it?
Absolutely. So what happens, take a look, if you look at the website, Goodbye. All right, the next thing that we're going to deal with, so that's the text area. Now the next one we're going to deal with is this. We're going to break. We're actually going to put 2 breaks.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
Something happened like where I wrote text here to close it, right? Oh, I put a space. I'm realizing my own mistakes.
Okay,
And
which is good. Which is good. That's what you want to do. Now I have text area closed, and now what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say checkbox, colon. I'm just going to copy this for right now because I'm going to use a lot of it, and I'm going to paste this. This is an input type, but instead of password, this is going to be checkbox.
And where you wrote checkbox colon, that's like what's gonna pop up.
Correct. Now, in the name, however, the name is a little bit different. Okay, the name is basically an identifier. It attaches it to the question. So you would say name equals check, value equals yes. Okay, so the name has to deal with the actual type of question it's going to be. So for example, let's say this checkbox question, and because again, a checkbox can be clicked multiple times. So I'm going to say checkbox yes. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste this, and I'm going to change some of the yeses, or the yeses in this one, to no's. And I'll say no here. So take a look.
Oh, I see what this is.
So if I refresh this, I've got a checkbox yes, checkbox no. So if I were to check this and send it to the server, the value would be yes. In this one, if I check this one, the value would be no. So I would get saying that for this question, let's say, for example, this question right here is associated with check. I check the yes and no box. This is the organizational identifier. Because let's say I ask 10 questions and each one has multiple answers. How do I identify them? Through the name. So let's say I ask one about favorite cereals out of these 10. Then I ask favorite cars out of these 10. The name for the first one would be cereals, and then all the different values. Then the next one would be cars, and then all the different types. Does that make sense? And the key thing to remember with checkboxes is you can only choose one. Now the second one is, now I'm going to hit break a couple of times. And I'm going to hit break again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this 3 times.
Do you need to close the checkboxes?
No, you do not. I'm going to change now. I'm going to hit break, and I'm going to change this to radio.
You just copy and paste that.
Copy and paste it. I'm going to change this from yes, no, and maybe. Okay. But instead of checkboxes, I'm going to change this to radio. The name, we're just going to change that to rad. This is the same thing, and this is what's important. Now, I'm going to go over this in a second. Rad, and I'm going to change the values from yes to no and to maybe. You'll be familiar with these because these are, take a look, radio survey buttons. As you can see, I can only select one.
Oh.
But here's the problem. Now, but here's the thing. Take a look. Let's say I got the values confused, and I changed this to, let's say, no. And I saved it. Take a look what happens now. Now I can select multiple. The name ties all the radio buttons together.
Oh, okay.
Okay? It ties all the radio buttons together, and what it does is it basically keys these certain radio buttons to be only one option can be selected.
Okay.
So for example, if you're doing a survey, please select how you like this room at this hotel. 1 through 5, 1 being not so good, 5 being good. All the values would be 1, good, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever, but then the name would be hotel quality. And then the second one, let's say cleanliness. And then the third one would be yada, yada, yada. And then you would attach 5 questions to each. So if you can think, have you ever done those Myers-Briggs tests where you have all those, what are you feeling, 1 through 5 or whatever?
Yeah.
They're basically, for each question, they're copying options and just putting them all together.
Could I ask something?
Yes.
I'm not. Oh, input. The input type is radio.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is the one thing that we did was we put a select. So I'm going to actually add a break right here. And I'm going to add another break right here. Now, select is actually cool because choose your free period. Okay, and I'm going to hit break again. And what I'm going to do, now this is another tag that's very similar to the text area. Because it's got advanced features, it needs to be in its own tag. So we're going to say select. We're going to close select.
So this is one of those ones you need to close?
Yep. And what we're going to do is this. We need to give options. We're going to say block A. Actually, we're going to say this. Actually, option. Option, name equals A, value equals A. Okay, and then I'm going to say block A. And I'm going to close my option. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to paste it a couple more times. B.
And block A is what you get on the
C.
back end.
The value is what you get on the back end. So the name, I'm just going to call class. Because this tells me that it's directly tied to this. And then I'm just going to change this to B, C, and D. So I hit save. Now if I refresh this, take a look.
Just get this all set up. Oh, that's the. Okay, so the options are the drop down.
Correct. Okay, and then the last things were the buttons that we went over in class. So I'm going to copy the radio button again. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to just copy I'm going to break here, or I'm going to do this 3 times. Okay, this radio button 3 times. So we learned 3 types of input buttons. Actually, you only need to worry about 2. We did a submit button.
I think I have.
Type submit, name submit, value equals, click me.
So the value is what shows up.
Value is what shows up in the button. So if I save this and refresh it, click me. And if you click it, it should open up an email. And take a look. Text equals, password equals. Every time if I were to click on, for example, let me just do this. Here, comments here, checkbox, no, and then radio, click me. See, check equals yes, and check equals no, and radio equals no. Submit, click me. All your information gets put inside that email. And then the last one is a really easy one. Reset. The name I'm going to say is reset. The value is clear all, because that's what it does. You have just created your form.
So the input type is like the code that's telling the computer what do you make.
Correct.
The name is what you receive on the back end.
Correct.
And the value is what appears in the button.
The value is what appears, for example, your interactive elements where you don't have a choice to fill anything in, like your radio button, your checkbox, and stuff like that. The value, you do the value for you. So for example, in this first option here, if I choose block A, it's going to spit back A. Here on this radio button, no. The value that it's going to send back to me is no, because I can't type anything in. So it's basically the typed in answer for you if you choose this radio button. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there we go. So that is your form. Oops. So now if I do this, a command save, I refresh it, there you go. And that is a form.